Hi, Miss Ransaller. Welcome to my Life in the Seigneurie project. And today I'm going to be giving a little tour of what I built and what I have. So let's start off in the kitchen. So in the kitchen, we have two fires. And basically what the fires do is they keep us warm in the winter or when it gets cold. They boil water and they cook food for us. So that's the main priorities of what we do in the fire kitchen area. Over here we have a little table, and this table is used for preparing food or preparing to cook food. And as you can see right here, we have two little pieces of glass, and we don't have any more than two because the glass is really expensive back then, and it's really hard to get. Alright, moving over to our little compartment area. Right here is where all the cooking accessories and everything else would be kept. So anything from pots and pans to um, knives, spoons, forks, to cups, utensils, napkins, tablecloths, they would all be just put in here. Alright, let's move over to the dining table. So this is the dining table area, and basically what would happen here is everybody would just come and gather around and they would eat all their meals here together, and they would have a really good time together. Alright, let's move down to the root cellar. So this is a root cellar, and basically the purpose of a root cellar is to preserve food over time. So basically, if let's say you had food from late summer or even early fall that you want to preserve for winter or early spring, you could do that, but you just put it in a fruit cellar, and it's basically a larger fridge that's underground. So you could basically put anything in here, and it would be preserved. You would be able to eat it a good 2 or 3 months later. Also, fun fact about fruit cellars: back in the day, when people passed away, they would keep their bodies in the back of the fruit cellar so it wouldn't rot and it would actually be preserved before they can put them in the ground. So instead of just burying them in the ground, they would actually put them in the fruit cellar first, and then they would bury them. So yeah, I decided to make a little area because they wouldn't put it right in front of all the food or anything. They would actually put it right in the right behind everything. So I decided to make a little area for it. Let's move on upstairs. Moving on upstairs, we have a room. We have the bedroom. This is just the main bedroom for everybody. No one gets their own bed. No one gets their own room or anything. And the reason why we have so many beds is because of financial awards. What financial awards is when the government tells you to do something and you do it, and then you get a reward, which is most of the time money. So in this situation, it have a family bigger than 10 people, and this there's 12 beds in here, so there's more than 10 people. Therefore, the government will give them money for doing what they wanted to, and this will help them maintain the family. Let's move on outside. So outside here, we got a little well. So basically, as I said, you have to boil the water before you drink it because the well is it's underground, so there are many impurities, and you'll get sick from drinking it right from the well. It can be dirty, there can be bacteria, there can be sicknesses, there can be a bunch of things that can potentially put you in serious illnesses. So you don't want to do that. You want to boil it first before you drink it. Also, I add a little bell right here. So just, yeah. Alright. So this is the outhouse. It's pretty basic. There's nothing specially added to it. So basically, if you don't know how an outhouse works, it's basically you lift the seat up, you do your business, you lift it down, you shut the door, and then you walk away. So basically, you don't really have to. There's no flush. There's no nothing. There's no pumps. Nature will do its work. It'll just go into the soil and underneath. So that's basically the outhouse. Let's move on to the barn. Ooh, the sun's setting or rising. Looks really nice. Oh well. So in the barn we have one horse, one cow, and 5 chickens. The chickens are all here. As you can see, there's a little water area for bathing and drinking, and the chickens are bathing right now, as you can see. Yeah, and there's 2 little haystacks right here. There's some torches for light. There's a large space for running around and having fun and doing your business. The cows are mainly used for their milk, and if needed they would use it for leather, but that wasn't, they wouldn't use it because they would only have a limited amount of cows. In this situation we only have 1 cow, so we won't be using it for leather. We will be just using it for milk. The horses would be mainly used for transportation. The chickens would be used for their meat and eggs, and we would never waste anything of the animal. Even if it's down to the bones, we would use it as jewelry. So let's say a chicken died, and we're going to use the meat for we're going to use the meat for food. If and we're going to use the feathers for decorations. We can use them for pens. We can use them for a lot of things, and we can also use their bones for necklaces or jewelry, just like as I said earlier. We can use, and that's the same with every other animal. We never waste anything, so nothing is wasted. Moving on to the little barn storage area, I'll give you a little 360. So basically what the barn storage is where anything from growing plants to on the farm where the animals are is all kept in the barn and farm storage. So basically you can keep leashes for horses when you're going to take them out for traveling. You can keep pails and buckets for milking cows. You can keep baskets for collecting eggs. You can keep cow fertilizer for making sure the crops, you can grow good crops, making sure for the soil is rich. You can hold pails for collecting water and, you know, refilling the little area for water for the animals, or even watering the plants by hand. We can keep animal food here, and we can keep, if there's any plant food, we can also keep it here. And also many tools for farming would also be kept here, like shovels, rakes, anything really. So everything would be kept in here, and whenever it needs to be used, we would take it out, use it, and then put it right back where it is. So this is a little farm area that we use for growing our own crops and harvesting them when needed. And these are the exact crops that we would keep for the winter, so we wouldn't starve. So these are the exact ones that go into the root cellar, and we preserve them over time. So basically when the crops are ready, we just harvest them and we can eat them right away. We might want to trade them with other people for other things, maybe a new type of seed that we don't have to grow new type of things. Like let's say we want to give away some pumpkins for some wheat seeds to make flour and to bake bread and that stuff. We could do that very easily. So yeah, we could do that, and also we could trade with people. We can use it for ourselves, or we can save it for one time when we really need it, or when we're in desperate emergencies. So that was my little farm area. Okay, so now I've actually made 2 different sides. As you can see, there's one side right here and there's one side right here. I have just showed you the more fortunate side, and I'm going to show you now the less fortunate side. I decided to do these things because I wanted to show you how it is to be living as more fortunate versus less fortunate as a habitant. Alright, so let's get started with the farm. So in the farm, as you can already tell, there's a lot more animals, and there's a lot more variety of animals. There's a sheep right here, there's a pig over there, there's tons more chickens, there's a llama, and there's many more things. So we can already mostly tell they might eat meat more than crops, because they have only a little crop zone, and they don't have water in between, so the crops are not, so the plants are not always they are not always watered. So they would have to hand water them, and most of the times, if you couldn't do the job right on time, they would die, and you wouldn't be able to either to keep them, to preserve them, or to eat them right away. You wouldn't be able to do that. So we are just going to be assuming that they would be eating more meat. I would say chicken as I see it more. But there's an upside and downside to this. Even though they do have less crops, they have more animals. And they have sheep, which we do not have on our farm. And they can be using the sheep wool to make sweaters and blankets and other things to survive through the winter. So this is our tool and barn storage. You can already see it's a bit smaller than the ones that we had. And on the inside, let's take a look on the inside. On the inside, it's very small and cramped, and there's only one little compartment that they can keep things in. And it seems to be that they have rails, they have boats, they have pails, they have all the essential needs for a farm storage here, and that's good. But they could have had a bigger one if they could have had a bigger one. Over here, they have a little well. As you can see, it is not. It is an underground well. It's not overground. So it still does the same purposes. It's just a bit harder to get. Um, I would say they weren't able to afford the materials to build their own overground well, so they just had to dig deep down until they found a stream of water going through. So then they just used that as their main source of water, and um, it was probably more dirty than the ones in the well, so they had to boil it more often, and they couldn't drink it even if they were desperate. They would just get sick right off the bat. Let's take a look inside the house. So inside the house, you can already see 2 beds. 2 beds, so there has to be 2 or more people. So right here we can see there's little areas for containing water. I assume this is boiled water, so they wouldn't have to go back back and forth collecting water or any of that. They wouldn't have to do any of that, so it wouldn't be a struggle for them to get water when they needed it. Down here, it's the root cellar. And right here, as you can see again, it's really small. It's not as big as ours. And also, they do not have a door to keep, or another compartment area to keep the dead bodies or people that passed bodies. So they would actually put it in a corner. So I would say somewhere here, somewhere there, or they would just have to manage it and just keep it in the open, and just keep it preserved until they bury the person. So right here they would store anything from dyes to meat to more things for outside, and milk and water and some eggs. So they obviously didn't have as much storage as we did. They didn't have a little compartment area to put, people that passed bodies. So they would just have to put them in the open, in the middle of nowhere. So upstairs, this is just a bedroom for one person. Just one person, one bedroom. So now we can start assuming that the reason why they were so unfortunate was because they didn't have financial rewards. As I said earlier, is when the government gives you money for doing something they wanted to, and if it was for having more than 10 people in a family, this family only has 3. Therefore, we can already assume that the reason that it was so unfortunate was government didn't give them money for doing what they asked. So this can be, even though they have a smaller family, you may think it's easier to maintain. It's not, because they wouldn't have the money. They wouldn't have enough money even to start off with any family. So we can assume right now that this was the main cause of why they were so unfortunate. They also did have an outhouse. It was the same as ours. Nothing more, nothing less. And basically, as I mentioned earlier, you go in, do your business, close the door, nature would do its work. And yeah. And although the habitants were very busy, they still were very religious. So they would go to church once a week. And I have built a church right here to